My name is Greg Gebolys. I work here at the Joint Systems Manufacturing Center. Actually, it's kind of a funny story how I started here. I started here in 1977, and it was right after the 200th anniversary of the United States. I came down here from Toledo as an operating engineer to hang steel in this plant, and they asked me if I'd come down here for a one-day job, and I said, do I have to really? And they said, yes, please go down there. And I stayed, and I hung the steel for the plant, all the steam lines for the plant. And then after I worked on that job, they asked me to come back the next year, and 78, and I worked here. Then they told me, they said that they were looking for somebody like me to go work for the Army or for Chrysler Corporation that had a contract for the Abrams main battle tank. And I said, well, let's just see how many people are out of work in the Union Hall. So what I did is I gave a call, and they said, well, it's going to be a little short this winter. So I thought, well, I'll hire on, and I'll go talk to them. And they hired me on my birthday, but I told them I wanted a 2-week vacation because I hadn't been off for a while. And he said, you're the only guy I've ever hired wanted a 2-week vacation right up front. So I started off with sort of a 2-week vacation, which I always liked. And then I started working for Chrysler Corporation on a new main battle tank. And it was very exciting. I found it to be really a new adventure I never even planned for. And we had built the Abrams, and it took forever to build the first one. A lot of different configurations and everything else went into it. And the reason why they built the tank, and I started studying about it, is that Abrams was in Patton's Third Army. And when they made the thrust into Bastogne to break the back of the Germans when the 101st Airborne were there, that he led it. And his philosophy was, we need to build the best tank we can to save the crews and make sure that the crews are protected. We can replace a tank, but we can't replace the crews as easily. They're very hard to train, and it takes a lot of skill to operate a tank. Well, Abrams became a commanding general in the Army in Vietnam, and his philosophy of the tank was carried through on protecting the crew and building a good tank. In 1970, they had a joint venture with Germany to help protect us against the Russians in Germany. And that didn't transpire. Congress had a problem expediting the money for it, and there was problems. So the Germans went ahead and built the Leopard. Later on, the Americans got on board, and they built the Abrams main battle tank, which is still produced here today. The Abrams main battle tank rolled out of this plant in February 1980. Mrs. Abrams was here, and her son was here. General Abrams had died by that time. She broke a champagne bottle on the front slope, and there was probably 1,000 prayers going up to heaven at that time that all this stuff would go off perfectly, because a lot of people hired into this plant and wanted a good job. And so they took the pride in the tank, and they continued to build it. And when the tank first came out, they had issues about it. They said it was a gas guzzler, and it had other types of problems. The mud would get caught up in the rear skirts, and they said it was too big, and it was this, and it was that. Well, all those myths and all those problems went away when it went in the Desert Storm. And when Desert Storm broke out, and that tank hit the desert and started taking out T-72s left and right, and start defeating the enemy at very high rates, and none of our tanks were destroyed. All the things that everybody worked so hard for all those years came to pass, that those tanks brought all our boys home. What General Abrams really wanted to be done actually took place. So everybody here was very proud of the product. And even later on, the President of the United States came here to thank us for the job that we had done. The main battle tank we build now is the M1 A2, which is the latest technology tank on the battlefield. And it's very important that we continue to build the latest technology. As I talked about in 1991, when Desert Storm went on, that those tanks were a lot better than the tanks that we fought. And the reason that we keep the technology up so our guys don't pay the price for technology edge. So as every day goes by, our enemies are continuing to upgrade their tanks, and their weapons and that. So we always need to keep the technological advantage going on. We built many tanks, over 10,000 tanks came out of this plant, and actually we haven't even really built a new tank. This is like a frame-up restoration. We take the old tanks, and this is another idea of the Abrams concept, is to gut the tanks and have the shell like you do a B-52 bomber and put all the new equipment in it. And it's just like the plant originally started. This plant was originally started for big guns, and the technology changed, so they ended up being an Army depot in the early years. They changed with technology as technology changed, and we have done that too here. We have changed with the technology. We've kept up with training and different types of welding, kept up with the latest night sight visions for our tanks. And today, you know, when you go on a battlefield and you see an Abrams, they don't call it rolling thunder for nothing. They roll up and they fire off, and the enemy does not want to engage our tanks. One of the Iraqi commanders said it best. They said, after 100 hours of air war, I had everything but 3 of my tanks in my division. After only 3 hours with the Abrams tanks, I had none. And I think that kind of quotes it right to the point of making the point that the Abrams tank is the big boy on the battlefield. That's what you want to have. And I've worked here approximately 34 years for the tank manufacturing side of it, and 2 years for contractors help building this plant. It's one of the things I'm very proud of working here. I worked on the very first tank built here, and I hope to see this tank be going down the field when I'm 100 years old, put my hand on it and say, I worked on one of those and stuff. But my name is Gebolys, and I'm proud I work here.